All I've really gotten out of this is that Gwyneth had a lisp. What good does that do me? Nothing. No idea. The book about Elias Roottree was mentioned but didn't turn out to be very useful at the time. I mean, there's also this guy. It was probably still useless. Very few copies of the original published in 1920, but it was recently republished by the same publishing company that printed Lauren's Diary for Schools. It seems they wished to capitalize on Roottree mania. It did not work. Reprinting of an old book. Blatant corporate propaganda. Click. Dictionary defines propaganda as information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. But if they were to replace that definition with a picture, it would be a picture of this book. This book tells you nothing new about Elias, and from what you know of his true feelings towards some of his extended family, you're not sure it tells you anything true about Elias either. Reassured this book was so lazy that they reused the famous photo of Elias from Business Watch, whose copyright had expired. The best thing it has going for it is that it's only 85 pages long. Well, it gives me a picture at the very least. And that might be about it. Still, it's going to allow me to plug in this, if nothing else. Why does this still not fill in any blanks? Pretty sure I've tried both of these. I've tried both ways around. Do what? What, where, when, why? Have I even ever heard of this book? What is this? Right, yeah, the cookbook. So we're talking about all of this. The introduction of this book is a series of acknowledgements from Steve. The first is, Christine, thank you for everything. Your support means the world to me. You're the apple of my pie. The second is to James and Robert. You're becoming amazing men and incredible chefs. I guess I'm a good teacher. The final is to Mark Zimmer. You proved my storytelling approach to recipes could be popular. Without you, this book couldn't exist. We don't even know where any of this goes yet, do we? We have some information, but we don't know where any of this goes. There's also a foreword by Mark Zimmer. I first met Steve in 1978, where he taught a cooking class. The next time I saw him was over a decade later, when he was suing me for stealing his recipes. Yes, really. So you might wonder what I'm doing in this introduction. Well, it turns out that Steve and I had more in common than we thought. Instead of settling in court, we settled it at McCann's brewhouse over a game of darts. He said they'd give us the first drink of the night free for an entire year for mentioning them. By the end of the game, he and I agreed we'd rather make a ton of money together than spend a ton of money on lawyers. It's pretty rare to meet your best friend so late in life, but when I decided to retire, I moved to Boston just so we could hang out. So, if you're browsing this book in a bookstore, please buy our book. We need more money for when the free beer runs out, and the bookstore could probably use the sale. McCann's Brewhouse is a pub in Boston, and they have a website. Apparently the bar's been around for a long time. On the site, there's a list of famous people that have had a drink there, including former President of the United States, not of the Roottrees company, Kennedy. There's also a few listings of television shows and books that have mentioned McCarrans as well as how they came up. One of them is Garnishing the Truth, which the site has this to say about. Local and regular, Stevie G wrote a book about food. We prefer cocktails, but he gave us a shout out, and we ain't gonna say no to free press. So go grab a bite at his kids' joint Friday, and then swing by to meet him for a drink. Friday is a fairly popular restaurant in Boston. They don't have a website, but many locals seem to mention them in various places. One more in-depth review explains that it's not a full restaurant, just a front door and a very small interior with a window. Unusually, the restaurant only serves vegetables, but a lot of reviews say that in spite of that, it's delicious. You also find a short story about it on a webpage called My Boston Homepage. Whoever runs the page seems to just link to random sites related to Boston, tell personal anecdotes related to Boston, and give their relatively short opinion on things in Boston. It's very unorganized. It has this to say about Friday. Wicked overrated. I saw it in Chef's Signature, so I went and there was a huge line and they didn't have a single meat dish. What's even the point? Chef's Signature is a magazine related to food and trendy restaurants that covers subjects all over the United States. Aha, we have a new periodical. Fantastic. That could be useful. That could be very useful. So, I think I want to keep that line. That sounds potentially very relevant. Okay. Our list of periodicals is growing. A magazine about restaurants and kitchens. Chef's Signature covered Friday less than a year ago, right around the time you were doing your initial investigation. Each article tends to focus on a restaurant, and like the magazine's name implies, each restaurant lists the one main dish the head chef is known for. Friday's signature is the samosa cone. The cover and main article have been added to evidence. Lovely. but it's probably going to be nothing, because it's just the name of a piece of food. Still. What have we got here? We got pictures. Chef Signature, a nationally published magazine targeted toward fans of unusual restaurants, featured James and Robert Garland on the cover of their November 1998 issue. According to the article, the two brothers own a small walk-up window in Boston called Friday, a play on the tie-dye shirts that the servers wear, that exclusively serves vegetarian dishes. Most of the offerings are heavily inspired by the powerful spices found in Thai and Indian food. Their signature dish is the samosa cone, which from a distance somewhat resembles a traditional ice cream complete with a waffle pattern. Instead, it contains fried potatoes, pureed peas, carrots, and a special ginger-based sauce. That is kind of what I would expect to find in something called a samosa cone, yes. Robert, who is 3 years younger than James, jokes that though the age difference has left him delegated to wear the shoe chef jacket his whole life, he doesn't mind. As a result, James answers most of the interviewer's questions. James credits his love for food and culinary skills to their upbringing. Most parents hate vegetables growing up, but they didn't have parents like we did. My father was a chef, and my mother grew up on a farm that supplied his restaurant. Highlight. That's how they met. I don't have any memories from the farm or anything like that, since we moved here before I could even talk, but they told me stories. My dad's a great storyteller. He even wrote a book that partially helped fund Friday. When we moved, they were looking to open their own restaurant together. Unfortunately, they never got it off the ground. His line cook gig ended up being less temporary than he hoped, and he had to go back to work she had to go back to work as a secretary even after Robert was born. Before we were old enough to go to school, we spent our days with my aunt. In the diner where he worked, my dad had no room for experimenting, so we'd exercise his skills at home on his days off. We'd always go shopping and cook as a family on those days, and even though we were hyper kids running around and causing a ruckus, those were some of our family's favourite memories since we were all together. Mom always had the eye for the best vegetables for him to work with, and she did her best to pass that on to us. According to the article, their parents, who are now retired, visit Friday often. They even have a signature dessert, the Sistine apple. Apple pie has always been my mom's favourite, and my dad always had this stupid line he used to make her laugh involving apple pie. Most people realise that it's a Sistine Chapel pun, and assume that's all there is to it, but it's actually secretly named after them, sort of. If only I knew where any of this went on the graph. Because I don't. Ba. Nothing relevant. Only one Anatoly's has ever been featured in Chef's Signature. It's called Anatoly's Attic, and they're a dessert restaurant that serves a variety of dishes meant to invoke a neglected part of the house. This includes their signature dish, Cobweb Cobbler, which uses candy floss atop a blackberry pie. They also have a cheesecake they call the Dust Bowl, which is served in a mason jar and has a very finely crushed cookie atop it. As delicious as it all sounds, the restaurant doesn't seem related to your search in any meaningful way. No. 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 You know, this periodical might actually be useful for that much, since we don't have a whole lot of restaurants to look at. Okay. What does any of this have to do with anything? I've got a whole bunch of information. Probably a Christine, it's a Christine Sistine pun. I've got a whole bunch of information about these people, but no idea where they go on the graph, if anywhere. You know this is in the right place, because that locked in properly. Meaning, I guess, that they must be down here if they are anywhere? So, hey. Let's pop them in and see what happens, I suppose. Okay. Garland, but it's probably not her birth last name, with a near certainty. We don't have a picture for you. I mean, I put them the wrong way round for a start. Can we can probably... Probably find... Yeah. So this is... Christine Farrow. Do I put you down as a secretary or a farmer? Guess I'll put you down as a secretary. down here we have... I don't need this. Robert. Garland. That's enough. Interesting.
Sam reached out to me finally. I think I have you to thank for that one. My family's in a bit of a rough patch. Even though the candy is selling better than ever, everyone is fighting over the trust. The majority of us want to dissolve it. On paper, it seems like the right decision. The arguments about what to do next are endless and heated. More than a few Roottrees are worried about losing their wealth. I don't think we deserve it more than anyone else. I love my family, my wife, my daughters, even my son, who I hardly ever get to see. I want to keep them safe and secure, but I didn't do anything to deserve this fortune. Hell, I probably deserve it less than most. It took me way too long to get my life together. Okay, enough about me. Here's the deal. I can't stop the majority from voting one way or another. If you keep passing along potential Roottrees, I'll keep adding them to the list. On the other hand, there's been some leaps forward in genetics. It may sound like science fiction, but we can actually determine who's in the family just by testing their DNA.
Woohoo, science fiction. This is 1999.
What you've done so far has been very useful. Just keep filling out the tree and we'll prepare for the tests.
Cool. You know, I was really hoping I would get more evidence or something. Alas, alack, no. Garland. Well, that's one I know is definitely gonna be correct. I can put in your picture as well. What the heck? Dark, help me. I don't know where I'm going. The missing issue of Piketty attracted a particular group of people. I know this isn't here. Collector's item. Yeah, sure. And conspiracy theorists. I think I see me behind a sorter where it wants me to go. how do I get there? Sure, but how do I get there? Sure. How do I get into this rabbit hole again? Right. Bringing us to church, came across Thomas Overwood's conspiracy page about the Roottrees. 8 months later, the page still exists and is thriving. The visitor count has reached 7 digits. Many older articles have been replaced. It seems the recent uprising in Roottree news has left Thomas Overwood with a constant stream of events to base new theories on. More than one of his theories involve Roottree deaths being faked. According to Overwood, statistically, when you have this many high-profile people who have died in a family, the odds are that one of them faked their death. It's just math. This newfound focus on death faking seems to coincide with a post mentioning that he's begun believing the guy's not dead theory. In his own words, my eyes have been opened, all of this is beginning to make too much sense. One of his posts details the belief that Ron Roottree is still in charge, Gwyn Roottree's death was faked, and that Clark is only there to throw people off. Apparently, this allowed Ron to travel to France to develop their new candy recipe in secret. Another is about the rapper 5Ps. He can't possibly be a Roottree. One of his first album songs, when he was performing under the devil name, actually mentioned that he wanted to... Not even Sam Marsden is spared. According to Overwood, the author of 6 Pieces isn't real. Sam Madsen is an anagram for Am Madness. They're purposefully leaving hints for us. He claims that by using 6 Pieces with Lauren Roottree's book as a one-time pad, he's begun to decrypt a cipher. Most of the cipher seemed meaningless, but he eventually picked out the words people and vastness and is working on figuring out what it means. There's also a request at the bottom. Next year, 2000, is a leap year, and Overwood is looking for funds and volunteers to catch the Rootrees red-handed in Operation RT-29. He specifically mentions not to volunteer if you've ever drunk Spirit Cola, but doesn't go into why. Brilliant. Where do I even go with this? Well, here seems to be the main place. I could also dive into this again. Probably uselessly. Spirit Cola is a carbonated drink found only in the southern US. It comes in various flavours, including lemon, lime, and cherry. Brilliant. The Guy Is Not Dead conspiracy stems from a website that focuses on clues the Rootrees have supposedly hid all over the place. This includes on candy wrappers and print advertisements, in television commercials, in their jingles, etc. The story, according to the website, is that Guy Hudson was a terrible present at the Roottree company and introduced multiple failed products. Something needed to be done that would put the Something needed to be done that would put the company immediately and instantly back in the favour of consumers, so they killed off Guy Hudson and replaced him with a new president. This move immediately garnered sympathy, and the company recovered the next year more popular than ever. The next president stayed much further out of the limelight, and some people even theorised that he was simply Guy Hudson in an elaborate disguise, which is why he stopped appearing in public. The people who are on the site are asking for help. There certainly is a clue to all of this, that accidentally leaked in a banned article from the magazine Piketty. On their page is a scan of the magazine's cover, the interview, and some photos. Hooray! We finally found some stuff. And some photos, too. Okay. Here we have people. Including you in the background. Don't think I don't see you there, because I do. Photo is the first from magazine interview. Issue of Piketty magazine that came when it was pulled from shelves. Both photos were under the shared label. Cicely was provided these photos by the Roottree company for use in her book. In the background of the photo is a Christmas tree. And number 2. There's that famous photo. Okay. Immediately, got some more photos of Guy Hudson. We also have, I am pretty sure, and Zach Morden. Looks very much like him. And then, I don't know who these people are. I don't know who this person is. My old evidence with an 8 doesn't even exist. It's dropped way down to 2. Interview with Cicely Sanchez, an author. She was hired to write a book about Guy Hudson. He claimed to have been paid a significant amount to write a book about one of the Rootrees, Guy Hudson. He was president for a short period at the end of the 1970s, right? Yeah, I met him on New Year's Eve, actually, the last night of 1978. Guy liked to throw big parties. I was just coming off of Changed Man and looking for my next project. I would like to learn about this book. Presuming it is in fact a book. Nothing relevant, though. When his wife learned who I was, she invited me to the party and they cornered me to talk about a book. It was the first time anyone recognized me from my work, and finally made it. The book they asked me to write sounded great, but then none of the stuff that made him interesting was allowed to stay. Chop chop, snip snip, anything with even the slightest threat to Guy's image ended up gonzo. At his core, Guy was not complicated. In fact, I think I could boil him down to 2 traits. First, he wanted to be seen as the second coming of the great Elias Roottree, and second, he'd never be satisfied living the life needed to be seen that way. He had his fortune and good looks, but he really liked to exploit that to pick up women. But he couldn't let anyone else know, so it cost him a lot to cover it up. That was the only interesting aspect of Guy. He was James Bond, trying to convince people he was Mr. Rogers, I guess. Maybe that's not the best metaphor, but Elias Roottree was boring as all hell and all about family. Guy did everything he could do to be seen that way. After I submitted my first draft, he sent me this garbage book, the Roottree Legacy with Elias on the cover. The last time he and I met, he'd even switched out his orange suits for the same green ones Elias wore. So that's... remember fancy flavours. Guy knew that part of Elias's legacy was the 5-piece flavours, so that's what Guy tried to do too. Caviar was a disaster here, but it was actually somewhat popular in Brazil for whatever reason. In Christmas in 1979, he went to Brazil to open the Roottree Brazil factory. Fine, it can go on that page. Guy was always hopping across the world trying to recreate that success. It's complicated. I had an out in my contract. Surprisingly, Guy signed the contract my lawyers wrote without running it by anybody in his legal department. I could pull my name off the book at any time, but Guy still got the content. After I left, it probably got a lot harder to convince any real publisher to give it their time. Why, he never released it himself. If I had to guess, his family very wisely put a stop to it. Mid-1981, months after I had already moved on, he called me back and showed me a final draft. Do you know how expensive it is to publish one copy of a book? It had my name on it in big, shiny, embossed letters. Like all problems in his life, throwing money at me was his attempt to win me back. But it had half the page count and the narrative was torn to bits. No thanks. The dinner was good, imported steak that likely cost me as much as a month of my mortgage, and we all got pretty drunk. He sent his mistress, Susie something. Okay. Probably Susan Ford. Into the bathroom to proposition me, poor girl. I remembered her from our trips overseas. She was too good for him. Anyway, he died soon after, and that was the last it ever came up. Any insight into the scandals on the recent book by Sam Madston? I actually haven't read it. I just skimmed the sections on Guy to see why people were suddenly calling me up to ask about the man. I'd say she did well for what she had to work with. She only had rumours, whereas I spent time tailing him. Sometimes he knew, sometimes he didn't. He invited me to join them when dealing with the Roottree Brazil, but I actually had people on him when he went to Australia, France, and China too. When he met with someone, I'd figure out who they were and how they were involved. Doubly so if the meeting happened when he didn't want me to be around. Despite his best efforts, I got the whole truth, including things his family never knew. For example, the daughter of his business partner in Australia? I think her name was Robin. He and she definitely spent a few nights together that he didn't want his family to know about, but I did. Sam mentions Guy's affairs and treats them like most people would logically think to treat them, like the infidelity was a problem for Patricia. When his wife first approached me though, it wasn't to talk, if you get my meaning. On paper and in public it was a marriage like any other, but in reality it was more of a mutually beneficial arrangement. They both got what they wanted out of it, the same thing. Patricia enjoyed the company of women, and the swinger scene made her more accessible. I told her that I wasn't interested in her and Guy. I found out later that if I'd said yes, her next question would have been whether or not her husband actually had to be there too. Guy, on the other hand, was seen in a traditional marriage, and at the same time... I can assure you that was exactly the type of marriage he was interested in. Ooh, boy. Okay. Not sure what to do with most of this, but we certainly have an inroad here. Roottree Brazil, sometimes erroneously referred to as Roottree Brazil, is one of the companies created to manufacture and distribute Roottree candy. It was developed as part of the Roottree Everywhere initiative near the beginning of 1979. What's this? Expansion in the late 1970s coincided with some other large changes at the company and had mixed success. As far as you can tell, the different companies related to it were formed in very different, sometimes haphazard ways. No more organised information about the history of the expansion itself online, but you glean the following. Roottree candy had been distributed globally to certain markets approved by Elias as early as the 1940s. This included places like Canada, Mexico, and select countries in Europe, mostly the UK. Roottree Everywhere involved Rootree's expansion to other major markets that were assessed to be ready for Roottree. This started with four it had no share in: Australia, Brazil, China, and France. Each of the companies had an entirely new company formed, mostly by making deals with the local distributors and manufacturers. Okie dokie. Let's maybe make a new page for all of this. Everywhere. Everywhere. Where? That'll do. And I am gonna want to search all of these. Like some of the other Roottree Everywhere results, Roottree Brazil seems to be a success. You do some rough translating and find a significant amount of information about it. Brazil was the only region in which caviar-flavoured 5 pieces were a hit. A primary reason that the factory still exists to this day is solely to create that flavour, which comes in its own standalone 5-piece bag, with Portuguese writing. A small town named Alvalagos, near the municipality of São Bernardo do Campo, became the location chosen by the Roottree Candy Company after a newly elected local politician named Edson Sowers heard they were planning a new factory and petitioned them. Don't know what to search that guy. The factory was controversial as locals did not want it there. The Rootrees visited Brazil around Christmas and managed to break ground on the project. Since then, however, it has been operating relatively smoothly except for 2 incidents. The first was Incidento do Boro in 1982, and the second was an unsuccessful strike in 1995 that involved all the factory workers being replaced. The factory was originally built and run, according to paperwork at the time, by a small company called Nova Corpocido de Doces Brazil, which literally translates to New Brazil Candy Corporation. The company no longer exists, not much information has ever existed about it, and the Rootrees now run Roottree Brazil entirely. Let's look at these other subsidiaries, just in case. Importer and distributor. Hello, this is interesting. Robin Martin is featured at many of the top 100 wealthiest women in the world lists. She owns a private island off the coast of Australia where she reportedly has her own exclusive retreat. She has no husband, and there was a widely circulated rumour somewhere in the mid-70s that she had a medical procedure to ensure she would never have children. What it's worth, Martin seemed to lean into the rumours. In the 80s, he once showed up at a charity function with 3 very attractive men, each wearing a shirt that simply said "Satisfied Partner" on it. This might be utterly irrelevant, but I saw that Robin was also mentioned here. So this could be relevant, even though there's no intuition marker on that page, which means maybe it isn't. Let's move on for now. China Roottree, one of the companies. Long Hongbo is said to personally win over the Roottree family, and who was the owner of multiple textile families, did not wish to import the ingredients and build a special factory to manufacture the candy in China, so instead they made a deal to import bulk unpackaged Roottree candy and label it for not only China but additional markets. Hongbo, who was already in his mid-50s when the deal happened, only had daughters, and his brother Lang Hongo took control upon his death in 1986. After Hongyu died in 1992, it passed to the oldest child from the next generation, Lang Xinyu. It's a website for the Langtai Textile Corporation, which is a company that has helped expand Rootree's products to China since the late 1970s. The company is very accomplished. The site has quotes from many different reporters and news articles listed on it in about every language. This was mentioned quite often on websites about Chinese businesses, but those mentions are company-focused and not people-focused and don't offer any information useful to your investigation. The page contains a very rudimentary leadership timeline with names that prove the company has been in the Lang family for a long time. It goes back at least 250 years in some form or another. During the period where they began the Roottree deal, Lang Hongbo, in China the family name comes first, so Lang is his last name, was the CEO. He died before the internet was widespread, so there's not much out there other than his name on this website. His younger brother, Lang Hongyu, is featured in the history section directly following him. This also seems to be the only mention of the man. The current CEO is a woman simply listed as Xinyu. The site doesn't list her last name, though she does appear in the family tree below Hongba. Langtai has quite a few American logos on its page. One is the Roottree logo, another is Tranquilts, and the third is Piece of Asia. Lang Xinyu, businesswoman currently running the Langtai Textile Company. She was recently listed in an article on a website written by and for women. The article, titled Empowered, is about the recent rise of women entrepreneurs in China. The article states that due to the lack of brothers, she has a younger sister, Lang Xinyu took over as CEO of her family's company in 1992 after her elderly uncle was deemed unfit to run the company due to mental deterioration. This was apparently an extremely controversial move among the company's employees, and some of them, the article does not state how many, quit and wrote a letter stating that she must have coerced him in his vulnerable state. Since then, the company has been performing well. Her nephew, who is currently her second in command, is expected to take over when she retires. In the meantime, the board's stance has been a twist on a popular proverb. The article roughly translates it as, someone that has proven they can do something well could do it 100 times well. An unproven leader could doom us all. The article also offhandedly mentions that Xinyu was an early adopter of IVF and helped her sister have a child. There's an unsourced picture of Xinyu in the article. It says that it's from 1992 when she took over. Added to evidence. Not that one. That one. That's a tree, alright. Okay. Tranquilts? A play on tranquil and quilts. The name is ironic, considering they're the loudest quilts you've ever seen. The main quilt featured on their website is a flaming unicorn soaring through space with peace symbols all around it. They import cloth. Brilliant. And what is all this? American arm, located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The Thai in Langtai translates to peaceful, so they chose their name in America to match. Business is owned by husband and wife Jerry and Linda Han. Okay. Does this have any relevance? Possibly not. There is potential here. Let's move on for now. Roottree Funds is a non-starter. Negotiations broke down pretty late in the process, and then leadership went through a very large change soon after. CEO of Roottree Funds was meant to be Tristan Robert. Businessman who was at one time in negotiations to take over Roottree France. He's still alive, and he came across an interview unrelated to Roottree from a few months ago. It seems other countries have not been immune to Roottree mania, as he recognised the word Roottree in one of the questions. It seems the interviewer snuck in a question about his experience with the company at the end of the 70s. The article is in French, and takes some time to translate section by section. He mentions Guy by first name only, and the tale he tells is quite ugly. The translation is as follows. Guy, the president of Roottree, is one of the worst men I have ever met. He approached my wife about having an affair, which she refused. He then kept insisting that this was the best way to celebrate the end of our business contract. I don't think he expected her to say no. I don't think he thought she would tell me what happened. I punched him in the face and refused to attend another meeting with this man. They lost a lot of money on this deal because not only was he a terrible person, but he was also a terrible businessman. When he died shortly after, it felt like the universe was working things out. I wasn't surprised to learn he had a secret child. He seemed to treat women like collectible pocket monsters. It seems mentioning Pokemon sidetracks the conversation a bit, and the interview never returns to the subject of Roottree. Doesn't really seem relevant. Ian Swords was a Brazilian politician who found a dissertation published by a college student as part of their PhD in history. It focuses on the rise of democracy into Brazil. Until 1988, Brazil was run by the military, and politics during that time were often a hotbed for corruption and nepotism. The paper tells of a few politicians at the time, including Edson Soares. Edson is a former mayor of El Valagos. Before politics, he was a manager at an automotive manufacturing plant for a major American car company. He was put in charge of the town by the military government in 1973. As mayor, he used his manufacturing background and knowledge of American business to establish new factories, distribution plants, and other business ventures in the area. This had two side effects. First, he became quite rich. Second, many locals were forcibly relocated. This did not make him a popular mayor. And what the paper speculates was a move to counteract this unpopularity. His wife Sonia was discreetly put in charge of a television station called Teleread. He often used this connection to ensure supporters would appear on local television, supporting his beliefs and emphasizing his political victories. He remained in office until 1988, when he was defeated in the first election after the military government was no longer in control. After this election loss, he quickly left the town behind. It's not known where he's gone, but the dissertation even speculates he likely fled to stay alive. What is this? Former television station in Brazil came into being in 1970 after a vacuum was created due to the removal of a different network at the hands of the Brazilian military dictatorship. Not much to go on about who ran it and when. No one relevant. However, Spider Search does return a page that lists a news anchor in Brazil named Flavio Soles who has a mother named Sonia. Him, then. A young Brazilian newscaster with a bit of a cult following. The discourse surrounding him is, to put it in polite terms, lewd. There's a website about something called fan fiction. Oh dear. That has a small section dedicated to him. It seems that women, and some men, of a wide variety of ages and writing skill, tend to find him worthy of inclusion in their stories. Common thread is that he's currently dating a supermodel named Ashley York. Many stories either seem to ignore her existence or get her out of the picture rather quickly. There are also more traditional fan sites that list some things about him, including his age, 18, his zodiac sign, Libra, his favourite food, grilled steak, and his mother's name, Sonia. Also, it seems that Flavio translates to golden-haired. One website with a signed publicity photo of Flavio seems to confirm this. Photo added to your evidence. Ashley York is a British supermodel who does ads for perfume, clothing and jewellery. She's been the subject of some controversy in the past few months, having been protested by Peter for wearing fur on the cover of some magazines. She's dating a young Brazilian news anchor named Flavio Soares, who has brought them both somewhat into the limelight. And I see we have a picture. I feel like we have too many threads for the spaces we even have. What's this incident then? Maple fire. In 1982, the factory was deliberately attacked in a case of clear arson. The fire was brought under control after destroying about 2/3 of the production floor, and locals claimed the air smelled like a mix of burning plastic and maple syrup. The factory was rebuilt and continues production to this day. At the time, it was unknown why this happened, but last year a news special did list this incident, as well as a few others in the small town, as backlash to perceived production and corruption in the government at the time. According to reports, the mayor of the city was found to be receiving a cut of the factory's profits. Nothing relevant for that. This just goes back here again. Jerry Linder and Mark Hann appeared recently on a website called Focus on Philanthropy under the headline Hangin' with the Hands. The Hands were chosen because they donate significantly to causes that further Chinese-American culture. Jerry and Linda were both born in China and fell in love during college. Linda's father led a large company, the article never names it. After it expanded to the US, Linda's father approved their marriage so long as Jerry took over the US portion of the business. Linda jokes that the entire situation is like something out of an Alanis Morissette song, with how ironic it all ended up. I was absolutely terrified to move to the United States, but my big sister was desperately in love with the idea. She used to have this Butch Cassidy poster on her wall, and was obsessed with Robert Redford. Yet somehow, Jerry and I were the ones sent there, and now we couldn't possibly imagine going back. When we had Mark, we never even considered giving him a traditional name. Meanwhile, my sister stayed in China and has thrived there. She doesn't even like visiting the US anymore. Yeah. Alright. I think what we might want to do now is try plugging some of these names and other keywords into some of our periodicals and see what happens like that. In particular, I think Business Watch might turn up a few things. Nothing relevant. Business Watch mostly focuses on American businesses, but the expansion of Roottree into Australia did create a bit of a blip in 1978. It mentions that Charles Martin met with legal and leadership teams from Roottree in late '77. They came to an agreement and broke ground on a new factory in '78. The Roottrees company's statement, said to come directly from the president, was brief and a bit awkward. Roottrees is excited to begin a new adventure down under. We're extremely impressed with Charles Martin and feel like this expansion heralds a new era for Roottrees that will last for years to come. Roottrees is founded on family, and Charles's family has also impressed us, especially his daughter Robin. You know, she'll continue to steer the ship just as Elias Rootree's family continues to do so here in the USA. And I dropped my pen on the floor. And I've accidentally flung it to a different place on the floor. Pen recovered. Fantastic. Does this give us any new information? Not really. I should probably be taking every name that I can, though, just for later plugging in, too. Charles Martin, let's grab him. You know that there's a... Whoops. A U. Robin. You know that we've got you. Everything here. The Roottree everywhere companies, including Roottree Brazil, Australia, China, and France, tend to be difficult to find anything useful about in Business Watch due to the massive amounts of advertising, business deals, and related deals such that they've been a part of. Able to find more by searching for individual people. Fine. Nothing relevant. Apparently Robin Martin sold off her father's assets in 1992, the year after he died, which combined with her inheritance immediately catapulted her to an almost unimaginable level of wealth. The writer at Business Watch who was assigned to report on this news seems to disapprove of this move immensely. While the article does touch on the announcement of who took over the licorice division, as well as what was to come of the maple candy factory, the entire text seems to be dripping with contempt that someone would be so willing to dismantle and gut such a successful company to earn a quick buck. The article ends with a dig at Robin's personal life and lack of traditional values. But who am I to judge? Maybe she sold it to ensure a better future for her own children. Oh wait. Presumably she doesn't have any. Which could be useful information in trying to plug this onto the graph somewhere, if indeed it fits anywhere. Let's just keep going down the list. And give me some of these names for easier searching. Okay. Nothing relevant. Searching for Lang Xinyu separately brings up much fewer results than Lang Tai. I wouldn't know, I've not searched Lang Tai. In fact, I shall add it to my list. Lang Xinyu was even featured in Business Watch in 1992. She missed out on Watchman of the Year, but did have a pretty sizable article that mentioned some of her history. She was born in 1947, the first of 2 children. Her mother was already in her 30s when she had her and had trouble conceiving a second time until 3 years later. This was Xinyu's sister. It became clear that her father was not going to have a son to pass the family business down to. This is how Xinyu became involved. Her father stayed the president of Lang Tai for a very long time, and his daughters grew up, and he began training them in hopes that one of them could have a son who could take over. One helped him in China and the other in the USA. Neither were given any official titles. When he died, due to societal dynamics, the business passed his male sibling a younger brother. Many in the know knew that this could be a problem. His brother, Xinyu's uncle, was not a businessman and was not much younger than his brother. During this time, Xinyu essentially ran the company as her uncle's consultant. He began to have problems related to dementia. Why did I pronounce it like that? Dementia. Dementia! And Xinyu, who had already been running things behind the scenes, performed somewhat of a power play. She stopped working until the results of her absence began to cause problems. Only then did they admit they needed her. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Lang Xinyiao was mentioned very briefly in an article about vitro-fertilization from 1979. The article details a new, at the time, medical industry. In vitro fertilization was... well... I've got the name wrong for a start. The inn! I need to include the inn. Was brand new, barely a year old. After the first successful IVF birth in 1978, it seemed the industry began to grow, and a featured article about different companies all over the world and the cost they could charge for their services was in Business Watch. This included a few cases of high-profile customers willing to pay a premium. Apparently, at the time, the CEO of Lang Tai was Lang Hongbo, and his younger daughter Lang Xinyiao and her husband could not have children, so in an attempt to create a suitable heir, he paid Genes to have their child implanted in his older daughter, who was unmarried. The cost for this was apparently 380,000 won, or just over $100,000 US. Right. This, I think, would have to be, if it's anywhere, over here. That explains this weird section on the chart. Fine. This is an extremely useful article. Let's take that bit as well. Key Genes was a medical company with operations in both the US and China. They made international news in 1994 after a whistleblower came forward. Apparently their services were, in some cases, falsified. While they did often perform IVF, the whistleblower proved that few of their customers paid for a very different service, an alibi. The company would claim they performed IVF on someone who was already pregnant to create a cover story for high-profile families who did not want to give up the child but did not want the shame of an unmarried mother. The whistleblower claimed that they had helped to do this at least 6 times, but only provided proof in one case, the daughter of an American politician unrelated to your investigation. Key Genes shut down soon after, and both founders have reportedly fled to Lebanon, where there is no extradition to either China or the US. This is useful information as well. Kinda. Ooh, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay. Okay. Let's keep trying to extract any information about this I can get. IVF, medical procedure that allows a woman to give birth to a child initially created in a laboratory. Sometimes this can be referred to as a test tube baby in popular culture. A woman does not necessarily need to give birth to a child developed from her own genetics. Sometimes, for example, a baby from an egg donor could be used. Other times, a woman could act as a surrogate mother for another woman who is unable to carry a child herself. If it does come up for the purposes of your family tree, an IVF child from a surrogate mother will be marked as belonging to their genetic parents, and the surrogate who gave birth will not necessarily appear on the chart unless she is part of the family. That said, be sure to investigate these situations very carefully. They can often be tricky or misleading. Yes. Should have split this up as well between China and Brazil. Maybe Australia as well. This all seems important. And I'm kind of getting it all mixed together, which isn't great. Like Ty was mentioned in Business Watch fairly often in the last 20 years or so. There were a lot of articles about the rise of Chinese companies. Unfortunately, this makes the search results not particularly helpful. When you sort to find the oldest articles, however, one of the earliest mentions from October 79 stands out as very unusual because it doesn't involve Lang Tai's business. The article details a new, at the time, medical industry. In vitro fertilization was brand new, barely a year old. After the first successful We've read this already. This just takes us back here again. I've already read back here again. Ashley York, a British model, appeared on the cover of Team Blast wearing a fur shawl 3 months ago. This appearance doesn't lead to any useful information, but another more recent appearance in text only mentions she's dating Flavio Suarez. In it, a Team Blast reporter asks how they met. I was in Rio for Carnival and he was on one of the parade floats. I had no idea who he was, but I liked what I saw and told my people to invite him to the party I was going to. I felt pretty stupid once I realised we were going to his party. Well, his mother's party. She runs a media empire down there called Transmisapaulo. A massive media group owned and run by a mysterious woman named Sonia Alves. That's why I'm not getting any results searching by Sonia Suarez. Different name. She had her name shortened to Nia to stand out in the public eye. According to a history page that's focused on her history and vague on searchable details, Nia received a significant inheritance in 1980 and invested it in many different manufacturing businesses in her hometown in Brazil. At the same time, she had just begun to learn the ins and outs of running a television network. She continued to work in television until 1988, when Brazil began its own period of reform. She felt this was the perfect opportunity to launch her own media company using her investment and connections. Now, her company owns television networks, magazines, newspapers, and advertising firms. After doing some translating, the page about Nia lists her as unmarried. It does not go into any other relationship history. Searching for Nia online, you learn that she stays out of the spotlight. She doesn't even appear at shareholder meetings. She sends a proxy. I wonder if Business Watch has anything to say on the matter. There's many forms of media in Brazil under the umbrella of Transmissor Polo, a business which mentioned her by name a few times. The most recent appearance seems to be an article about the struggles of American media companies to do business with their foreign counterparts due to a difference in laws. A few media groups and countries are discussed, including those in Africa and the Middle East. Transmissor Paulo was also discussed. Due to a lack of freedom of speech laws in Brazil, there has been added bureaucracy in publishing certain stories on Transmissor Paulo's channels. Mia is extremely private about her identity, and supposedly once used her connections to have a reporter fired from a rival network and blacklisted. The journalist claimed this was to shut down a story he was doing about her personal life, including that her marriage in 1973 was not of her own choice. Her research claimed that she essentially had her husband forced upon her as a child bride at the age of 15. Child brides were not outlawed in Brazil until 1990. It also claims that past appearances with her husband have been for show, they do not live together, and she resents her own parents for the arrangement. The final claim was that she must have made her money under the table through nefarious, and possibly illegal, means during Brazil's dictatorship, as his research uncovered that she could not possibly have earned enough to start her media company otherwise. After making this statement, the reporter went into hiding for fear of his safety. Piece of Asia has its butlers. Piece of Asia has its headquarters in Butler County. It's listed occasionally under many different contexts, as many local businesses are. Nothing seems important except the first mention in 1981. The newspaper chronicles that Jerry Han has travelled over from China to open the company, which is connected to a much larger company overseas called Lang Tai that has connections to Roottrees. It's not a factory, it simply imports and distributes Lang Tai's products. It also mentions that Jerry is the son-in-law of the current leader of Lang Tai. As someone close to the family who learned English in school, he naturally rose through the ranks as they expanded their reach to America. Though Jerry's wife Linda doesn't speak English at all, she is currently taking classes and he is teaching her at home. He says she's always been a fast learner and hopes that she'll be at least conversational by the time she gives birth. According to the article, this was not the first time they were in Butler. They visited in the late 70s when the rest of the leadership of Lang Tai were trying to court the Roottrees. It seems the first trip wasn't covered by the newspaper. Let's plug in a few things and see what happens. So over here, because I think over here is the bit that I am most sure about. Though most sure is still really not very. I don't know what to go with here because birth name, right? I don't know. We could go with either. It might not even matter. I guess I'll put CEO of a few different companies. Yeah, and who's this as well? I don't know who that is yet either. Means we've got you over here. And then down here we have this guy, right? This guy. And No. How am I describing your occupation? It isn't TV presenter or presenter. News anchor? Newscaster? Newsman? Person of the news? News anchor. Still so utterly bewildered by you two. I have another picture of you, apparently. That could be you from a different angle, I suppose. I'm really not sure about this at all. Considering. If I'm looking at the wrong part of the chart entirely. Are you actually over here? Let's try and find out. Right. The names being the other way round thing. Who knows anymore, even? Duck, help! Save me! I mean, yeah. That's why I put that where I have. I guess we're using the other name. But fine, apart from that, I think I've got this bit entirely correct. Apart from maybe her job. It's the same thing! It's practically the same thing. I'm not gonna complain about that one. Lovely. You are in the wrong place.